Oh, hey, y'all. It is Wednesday, which is a day ruled by Mercury, so it's a perfect day to talk about things of great importance. And I want to talk about why the New York Times can't say it to my face. Just say it to my face. Oh, hey, cosmic cuties. It is your friendo, the lady Ms. Vagina Jenkins, and I need to provide you some much needed context. Check out this video I made Monday. The New York Times would like you to know that the ways that your ancestors looked at the sky were wrong. And I would like you to know that the New York Times is an agent of white supremacy. Let's talk about it. Oh, hi, I am the lady Ms. Vagina Jenkins, Black queer autistic artist and astrologer. And this is an Astro Minute. So yeah, the New York Times came out with an article this Sunday, September 7th, 2025, and it's all about how astrology is wrong because the planetary placements have shifted over time. Right. And they're not wrong. The constellations have shifted over time. The planets have shifted over time. Earth's axis wobbles and we've lost a couple of degrees here and there. Yes, things have shifted over time as astrologers have been observing the sky and Earth's place in that sky. My problem with the article is that it assumes that astrologers don't know that our ancestors that observed the sky were not wise enough to A, note those changes and create mathematical formulas to compensate for those changes. I also think it's funny how often this article comes out. Every major publication has to have an article about how astrology is fake and it's wrong. But astrology wasn't fake and wrong for centuries while powerful men were engaging with it to make decisions about their empires. Astrology wasn't wrong when Ronald Reagan consulted his astrologer about presidential decisions. I just think it's real funny that now that astrology has moved from the patriarchy into the hands of women and femmes, that now there's a problem. I don't know, I could be wrong. Maybe the New York Times is not an agent of white supremacy. But if it shits on the contributions of black and brown people, talks like it can't imagine the intellectual contributions of black and brown people throughout centuries of astrological history, and if it talks like it's supporting patriarchy by shitting on women and femmes, I'ma call it white supremacy. And that's all I have to say on the matter. Actually, no, that's not all I have to say on the matter. I'm gonna make a longer video about this. See me Wednesday. So I've had a couple of days to sit on it and I'm still feeling sore. So I want to talk about it. The first thing I want to tackle, is astrology wrong or is your concept of astrology wrong? And what I mean by that is these articles come out every so often. I'd say every 6 months or so. A major publication has to be like, hey, astrology is pseudoscience, or, oh, what about that other constellation, Ophiucus, or, oh, time has changed, and so the zodiac signs are out of date, you know, things like that, right? And it's always those same viewpoints. But what those articles never do is they never consult any actual astrologers. The best that they will do is consult an astronomer, because they believe that astronomy and astrology should be the same thing, which they are not. And so, yeah, I feel like the foundation of these articles is shaky to begin with. Not doing your research and actually consulting experts destroys kind of any of the points that you're making in your argument to me. You know, I'd be curious about what y'all's opinions are on it. But mainly I'm just thinking, so you have an idea in your head about the way that astrology is supposed to work, and it doesn't work that way. So you're saying it's wrong, rather than doing any research into how it actually does work. That's an interesting approach. And to see it play out over and over and over again, like every 6 months across publications, like it's not just the New York Times. is particularly frustrating. And so that's why I'm making this video, to talk about it, not necessarily because I'm so upset with the New York Times. I've been known they a white supremacist institution, child. This is not a surprise to me. But this gotcha moment with astrology that continues to happen is concerning. I think these journalists think is that you could be standing at any place on Earth, look up at the sky, draw a straight line between you and the sun, have that line continue, and that it would be pointing at a particular constellation. You know, if it's March the 3rd, that will be pointing directly at the constellation of Pisces. And I get that desire. I'm sure at some point in my astrology journey, that's how I believe that astrology should work. And surprise, there are some astrological traditions where it does actually work that way. That description that I've made of this arrow from the earth pointing through the sun to a constellation is the closest thing that we have to sidereal astrology, or maybe the ways that Vedic astrology is practiced. Are those practices wrong if they conform to your idea as a journalist about what astrology is supposed to be? That's how I feel like these folks aren't actually doing the work of journalism and doing any research, because even the briefest of research inquiries into astrology would show you that the system that you're imagining in your head actually does exist somewhere in the world. And then if you had done some research, you could write an article that was slightly different and would assert that tropical astrology is wrong. I would accept that as an assertion because I would have known that you would have done some form of research. There are other ways of dividing up the sky. That arrow imagery that I drew for you, that's kind of similar to how the ways sidereal or Vedic astrology is practiced. But you could also divide the sky according to time instead of spatial relationships like with sidereal astrology. So if you were going to look at time, you might look at places in the year where there was a balance of light and dark in the day. They find two places. You've got these two equinoxes. Can the year begin on one of the equinoxes, March 21st, beginning the year with Aries? The halfway point becomes the next time we see a balance of light and dark in the sky, and we see that in Libra season, the halfway point. Are there other extremes in this sun-centered system? And then are there times in this sun-centered system where there is an extreme of light? Maybe there's a day of the year where it's the longest day, and maybe there's a day of the year where it's the shortest day. Can we note those in the ways that we divide up this time? There are also cultural systems of astrology, like Chinese Bazi astrology or like Irish cultural astrology. My point being that there are all of these different ways to conceive of and understand the sky. If you have not researched all of those particular ways, then can you say that all of those particular ways are wrong? Another gotcha that they will often pull out is the constellation of Ophiucus. There's 13 potential constellations, not 12. You're probably not a Pisces. Maybe you're an Ophiucan. You know what I'm trying to say. I absolutely hear that. It is legitimate pushback based on a modicum of research. Because, yeah, there are more than 12 constellations that we can see visibly from Earth. There's 80-something constellations that we can see visibly from Earth. Our ancestors chose constellations for certain reasons, because they had fixed stars or patterned ways of behaving that we could absolutely understand and be able to track. I feel like the deal with Ophiucus is that it doesn't make mathematical sense, and I wonder if our ancestors did not include it for that reason. The sun only spends like 12 days in that particular sign versus all the other ones having like a nice round 30-month-long period that we can also track with the moon. So once again, these articles, just the briefest little research as a journalist would have clued you in to the fact that it doesn't fit the pattern mathematically speaking. But no, everything has to be a gotcha moment. And that is my point. Why does everything have to be a gotcha moment? Why does astrology need to be disproven? And how is that need for the gotcha moment, the need for disproving, the need for saying, hey, group of people, your belief system is BS? Why does that need exist? I believe it's because of misogyny. Because astrology is currently feminized, though throughout most of history, astrology was masculinized. For example, over history, we see these largely white male astrologers being lifted up to positions of power and status because of the ways they use their astrology for empire. From Vedius Valens to Ptolemy to Nostradamus, over and over throughout history, you see this pattern of powerful men engaging with astrology to shore up the foundations of empire. Astrology is considered science at this point. And because the West absolutely deifies science, which is its own weird thing, astrologers rise in the rank and become people of power. Astrology is not accessible. It's kept in books and the average person cannot read. It is the realm of important, powerful men, right? But then we see in the 20th century a push towards making astrology accessible. Accessibility, making something more available to people under capitalism, means that you are then diminishing its value. And what I mean by accessibility is how astrologers like Evangeline Adams in the 30s started doing astrology consults via mail order, offering their services in common publications that most people could access. And because of new literacy rates, creating books and easy to print and distribute pamphlets is a way in which most people get their first access to astrology. Fast forward to more modern day, a lot of the astrologers are women and femme people. So you've got like Susan Miller, Astrology Zone, Chani Nicholas, the Chani app, Linda Goodman and her series of pop astrology books. So now we've created this sort of nexus in our astrology practice where it is feminized, where it is accessible, and where it is not valuable to capitalism. Oh, hey y'all, it's me from the future when I'm editing this video, and I wanted to explicitly state the reasons why I think that modern astrology practices are not in alignment with capitalism. So first and foremost, yes, I know that there's a whole industry, a metaphysical new age industry built on astrology and what can be sold about astrology. I get that. And that is very much in alignment with capitalism. But the way in which modern astrology is practiced is not that old way that serves empire. This is a new way that seeks to reconnect folks back to the knowing of their own internal wisdom, knowing and reconnecting with the self, the people around you, the natural world, those kinds of ideas. That's the kind of stuff that capitalism does not enjoy and discourages in favor of isolation, alienation, and thinking of the world as a place of disposability. So that way of reconnecting to the self and what populations of people are reconnecting to and finding power within themselves. When we're talking about women, femmes, people of color, poor people, getting the knowledge of themselves, reconnecting to the natural world, understanding that there is medicine and power all around them, in reciprocity with them, yeah, those are dangerous ideas to capitalism. And I believe that nexus is the perfect storm that makes the environment for articles like this one to thrive, especially when you consider how fascist most Western countries are becoming. Fascism has so much misogyny that comes with it, not to mention the racism. When folks see any particular area of life where women, femmes, and folks of color are finding power, it's a problem. It needs to be checked, it needs to be curbed, it needs to be diminished and shat on in some kind of way. And that's what I'm picking up on when I'm reading this New York Times article or any article from any major publication that feels the need to debunk astrology. I don't know, maybe I'm being overly woke. I don't think I am. Y'all tell me in the comments. First of all, have you read the article? Or read articles like it? And then, yeah, what did it bring up for you? Similar feelings, different feelings? Let me know about it, because I'm curious. I'm really curious to talk to other astrology enthusiasts, how y'all handle the constant doubt and need for these little gotcha moments. They seem so silly. At any rate, thank you so much for watching this video, being subscribed to my channel, being an astrology enthusiast, and thank you as always for making time for queer astrology. Bye!